Good day, my name is Ken Coetzee and I want to talk to you about practicing effective habitat conservation on commercial game ranches in South Africa, but with some examples from Africa as well. There are many examples of overgrazed and damaged farmland in the Eastern Cape, and as well as rangelands invaded by alien cactus species such as in Laikipia in Kenya. Typical examples of savanna destroyed by shifting agriculture in Nigeria, and also severe gully erosion on farmland in the Little Karoo. This is a good example of very poor farming practice in the Karoo in South Africa, with speckboom thicket that has been completely browsed out by small livestock farming. As you can see on the left is dense thicket, on the right the thicket has all but been completely removed. With a loss of plant cover, one has a loss of topsoil and also a loss of soil organisms. The loss of topsoil and of soil organisms results in a general aridification of the rangeland. With our work in environmental conservation and the management of private game ranches, we have been successful at numerous localities in restoring natural veld, bringing back drainages where formerly there were just erosion systems, and also creating useful grazing where there was overgrazing by livestock in the past before the areas were established as game ranches. These are examples mostly from the area of the Northern Karoo and the Little Karoo. A practical approach to the restoration on game ranches involves a number of steps. The first one is to remove the cause of the degradation. In most cases, it would have been overgrazing in the past with livestock. The second step is then to establish a restoration management plan, which consists of three parts: soil stabilization and monitoring, vegetation improvement and monitoring, and wildlife management and monitoring. This is just an example of one of our management plans showing the list of actions relating to the soil erosion control program. And as you can see, the actions are all prioritized and built into the management cycle. In other words, the landowner then knows exactly what to do and when he should do it in his 5-year management planning cycle. Preventing aridification. There are a number of requirements. The first is to slow down rainwater runoff. The second is to improve rainwater infiltration, and the third is to improve the plant cover. Here is a typical example of gully erosion on a game ranch in an area that was previously and historically overgrazed with small livestock. As you can see, the gully ends just beyond the person standing in the picture, and that is what we call a gully head cut. And this is the area that we would then attempt to arrest soil erosion to prevent it from eating back further into useful soil. The method that we use to deal with steep-sided gullies is to reshape the gully so that there is a much more gradual slope on which plants can more easily establish. Here is another example of a very steep-sided gully system that has been reshaped and flattened out so that one can more easily establish a plant cover which can then protect the soil from being washed away. After the area has been shaped, the entire shaped area is covered with an organic geotextile called soil saver, which is spread over the area and then pegged to the ground using wooden pegs. Once that has been done, the entire area is then brush packed with either a material that can be cut locally or a material that is brought in from outside if nothing is available locally. Here is another example of a steep-sided gully, and the fellow in the gully is a very tall man, so one can see the amount of exposed soil which dries out under the hot Karoo sun. And this area was chosen for rehabilitation also by using the reshaping method. The same area as the previous slide, showing the area once it has been covered with geotextile, and in this case it was entirely covered with wood chips which were available from relatively close by sawmill, and this only a few months after the area was shaped to create a more gentle slope for plant establishment. Here we have an example of the use of local materials, and in this case brush checks were made to slow down runoff water using alien plant material cut out from a riverbed in the Little Karoo, and the students are busy cutting up acacia, or rather thorn tree branches, to fill in the small gullies to trap waterborne silt and organic material. Here we have a bare-capped area due to past overgrazing, trampling, and rainwater impact as a result of it being completely exposed to the elements. Runoff water is completely lost from the site every time it rains. We deal with these capped areas, sheet eroded areas, by digging hollows in the ground. Each hollow holds roughly 45 to 50 liters of water, and the way that this helps is that each of these hollows fills up during rainfall, and the cumulative amount of water in say a couple of hundred or thousand hollows dug by hand rehydrates the soil, and each of these hollows can also then collect a little bit of wind-blown plant material and seeds, and becomes a safe haven for germination. After the first rains, the hollows will fill up, and as you can see, some plant litter is trapped in some of the hollows, and a little bit of silt as well. And already after a couple of rainfall events, one can see some pioneer plants starting to take root, and as time goes by, these plants will spread over this area from hollow to hollow, in between the hollows, creating the kind of protective cover that one needs to prevent further soil erosion off the site. This is a site in which hollows were made across the bare-capped area, and showing that wind-blown seeds of grasses were trapped in the hollows, and these grasses also help to retain moisture in the soil after rainfall events. The entire area was also covered with thorn tree branches to keep grazing animals away from the growing grasses, and to give them a chance to mature and to produce seeds for further plant establishment. Here, this slide illustrates the use of two different types of geotextile. The one flat on the ground is the soil saver, which is an organic jute material, which we use to cover shaped areas. And then the other vertical material and buried in the ground is called grass fence. It is a plastic woven material that is UV resistant, and this is used to prevent runoff water from damaging the erosion control structure. The use of the vertical soil erosion fence is basically to slow down the speed of water, and also to trap waterborne silt and plant material and other organic material like animal droppings and so forth. Here we illustrate that one can make use of any organic material to help prevent further soil erosion, and also to cover bare soil. In this case, we are making use of agave leaves in an area where a couple of hundred agave plants had to be removed, and we use the leaves behind one of our soil erosion control fences to slow down water, trap silt and animal droppings, and also the seeds of grasses and karoo bushes carried by the water. This slide illustrates the use of agave leaves to cover bare areas. As you can see, there's quite a good regeneration of both karoo shrubs and grasses, which germinate under the protection of these leaves and in a soil which is kept moist by the cover of the agave leaves. Here one can see the result after only one good rain season in the same area, showing the abundant growth of grasses in the former gully area that was stabilized using little erosion control fences and the packing of agave leaves over the surface to slow down the runoff and to protect germinating seeds. Part of our work on game ranches is also the control of the spread of invasive alien plants. Severe cactus invasions such as this one in Kenya, consisting of two different cactus species, is quite devastating in the amount or the total area that is covered by the cactus plants. There are areas here where cattle can't even walk through the area, let alone graze. We advocate the use of biocontrol for the control of invasive alien cactuses, and this can be very easily done by setting up a simple to build nursery in which the biocontrol can be grown in buckets by just reinfesting new leaves continuously and then planting out these leaves into the cactus infestation so that the biocontrol agents can spread onto new plants. So this is an action that must be continuous in order for the biocontrol to have a useful effect. Here we have the torch cactus, which is highly invasive in most of the Eastern Cape and a very big growing problem that is relatively unattended to. The problem with this torch cactus is that there's currently no biocontrol agent that is effective on the plant, so use has to be made of herbicides and manual labor to control these plants. Landowners can control torch cactus with herbicide, but the plants have to be damaged for the herbicide to have an effect, because by spraying the outside, just spraying on the outside of the plant doesn't work due to a waxy layer that the plant has on the outside of its cladodes. Damage can be done with a cop mess or a blade or something, or even just a stick. It just needs to be damaged so that the herbicide can penetrate the stems. Jointed cactus invasions, also widespread in the Eastern Cape and particularly on game ranches and livestock farms. Biocontrol is effective on this problem cactus, and the same applies here. We advocate the use of biocontrol nurseries in which to grow the control agents, and the continuous spread of infected leaves onto uninfected plants is an ongoing management practice, and it is apparently the only way in which one can control this cactus, other than the extremely expensive way of having many people picking up the plants and removing them from the veld. Here we have an example of a large patch of jointed cactus that has been completely controlled by the biocontrol agent. Very important in this case is to continuously revisit the sites where the biocontrol has been effective and to reinfect any bits of the plant that escaped biocontrol, and the follow-up, in other words, is critical. Many of the alien plants that we remove from game ranches are alien trees, such as the poplar in this case, and in other areas black wattle trees, which are very problematic along river courses. The restoration of arid rangeland wetlands is a particular concern of ours. One finds many examples in the arid Karoo areas of where wetlands used to occur and where they no longer occur because they have been completely drained by erosion systems. In this slide, one can see the dark organic rich soil above, which indicates where a marsh or a wetland once occurred. Our approach with the restoration of wetlands is to deal with the area, the catchment area of the wetland, and in this case, it is the catchment of the previous slide, where we simply treat the area with either erosion control fences or stone gabions, and the other erosion control methods mentioned on flat sheet eroded areas such as digging of hollows and so forth. Um, the other thing that we advocate is that the landowner reduces animal numbers so that whatever does come up in these restoration areas doesn't simply get grazed away before it can have some form of useful effect. Here is another example of a wetland lost through overgrazing and through the formation of severe erosion gullies, which then drained the wetland. The action here, as in the last slide, would be to treat the areas above this erosion system and to try and rehydrate the site by establishing a healthy plant cover and by means of erosion control structures. Here we have an example of a completely restored wetland and a healthy drainage line which has a good plant cover which will resist flood waters and prevent erosion along the banks. This has been achieved by means of some erosion control work and also the sensible management of wildlife numbers on this game reserve. Here we have a peat wetland on private land in the Southern Cape, threatened by invasive alien black wattle trees. The problem is that these wattles establish in the wetland. They are very poorly rooted, and whenever there's a bit of a flood, the wattle trees are knocked over, creating a hole in the ground, and this can often result in severe head cuts, which then result in the draining of the wetland. Um, One of our concerns in this area is that these wetlands, such as this one in the Veyers River near Herbertsdale, um, are home to a number of endemic fish species, one of which has yet to be named. Um, a major way of controlling black wattle is using biocontrol. We have a gall midge, a midge that lays its eggs in the bud of the flower of the black wattle, and this causes a hard gall, which then prevents the tree from manufacturing seeds. So we see this as a holding action. Most of the black wattle trees in the area are infected in this way, and it it uh, it is valuable in that without any seed production, we don't have any new infestations of black wattle trees until such time as we can get the finances to move in and actually cut all the alien trees out of the area. In the same area, we have a problem with the invasive alien Hakia in the Langeburg Mountains, and again, use is made of biocontrol agents, which are put out to control the seeding of the Hakia trees. And this is an ongoing program, and together with selective removal by hand, um, the denser infestations are infected and left up to the biocontrol. This is the Marmora cork oak forest in Morocco in the Mediterranean northern part of Africa. As you can see, the habitat consists mostly of large trees and shrubs and a ground cover of dwarf palms, smaller shrubs and grasses. The cork oak forest on this hunting farm has been largely destroyed because of over-harvesting of the cork bark, which results in the attack of the cork oak trees by insects and fungi, and also general overgrazing of the area by livestock and game. As part of the general management of the hunting farm, game birds were fed with automatic and open game bird feeders, and the result of this was that the European rabbit population exploded and basically consumed everything on the farm. Um, they they ate most of the grass and also the low-hanging branches of trees and shrubs as well. The reserve is also used for the breeding of rare Saharan wildlife species like the addaxed antelope shown here and the Dama gazelle also shown. Other species include other members of the Gemsbok family and also animals like the Barbary sheep. These animals were bred for hunting, and unfortunately, numbers increased to the point that severe overgrazing also occurred in the area that they occupied. A major project was launched to re-establish the cork oak forest where it had been destroyed, and a nursery was set up for most of the woody species that occur on the hunting farm. These plants, when strong enough, were planted out in plastic tubes in their thousands, and they were watered until they were strong enough to be left without watering. Here we can see the rehabilitated part of the cork oak forest. The smaller trees are the trees that were planted, and the ground covers, including the dwarf palms, were also re-established in the area. This is the Hunter's Moon Game Reserve in the Northern Cape along the Orange River. Soon after it was purchased, and a number of photographs were used to compare veld conditions from year to year. This is an area that was severely overgrazed by the previous landowners with domestic livestock. This is roughly the same area as in the previous view after 17 years of careful veld management and fortunately some reasonably good rains. This despite the fact that the reserve was stocked with large game for hunting, and many animals were removed every year to keep the numbers of animals on the land more or less in track with conditions in the veld. The grasses that you see are mostly perennial grasses, which basically took a full 17 years to develop. Originally, it was just the white grasses like Aristida and very little perennial grass. But perennial grasses basically started moving out of the hills and onto the plains. This is the Pinars River near Graafrenet, an area where some soil erosion control was done. And the method used here to control the erosion was basically soil erosion control fences, which were installed to slow down the speed of runoff water and to trap organic material. This is a view of exactly the same area in the Pinars River near Graafrenet, only 1 year after treatment and with some very good rains having fallen. As you can see, there is a complete grass cover in an area that was formerly almost completely devoid of any kind of ground cover. Commercial game ranches are often frequently accused of caring only about profit and very little for the land. The examples that I've shown you tell something of a different story. Game ranchers are just as concerned about the condition of the resources on their farms as livestock farmers are, and there are probably as many poor quality game farmers as there are poor quality livestock farmers. Thank you, that is it.